From painting to photography, from beadwork to woodworking, KQAL FM on the campus of Winona State University presents Art Beat. Art Beat highlights the work and accomplishments of local artists from in and around Winona. Support for Art Beat is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Today on Art Beat, we get a chance to talk with actors Tara Flanagan and Benjamin Boucvalt about the magic and hard work of performing on stage this year at the Great River Shakespeare Festival. The festival's 2026 season features two classic plays, A Midsummer Night's Dream and Pericles, Prince of Tyre, and will be held at the Ark. We'll get to look at the experiences of being in a new location and theater magic. I'm Kristine Osorio, inviting you to join me as we talk all things Great River Shakespeare Festival with talented actors Tara Flanagan and Benjamin Boucvalt on Art Beat.
Hi, I'm Tara Flanagan.
I am Benjamin Boucvalt. We've been in Winona now for 23 seasons. Yeah, but for most of our time we've been on the campus of WSU, and we're still partnered with WSU in a lot of ways. But our theater now is at the Ark, which is a couple blocks away on Main Street. And so right across from the post office. And this season's really big because we've moved into this new space that is just so charming and so fantastic. And so that's a big thing that's happening for us that's different this season.
Well, we were familiar with the building. As Benjamin said, many of us have been coming here for years and years and years. And so we were familiar with it as the old Masonic temple. Some of us had tours of the space years and years ago, but I've always appreciated how much Winona respects and seeks to preserve their historic architecture. And while the Masons are no longer using that building, I'm so impressed that it has been repurposed as a home for several arts institutions, including the Great River Shakespeare Festival. So I love the beauty and the charm and the historical detail of the building, as Benjamin referenced. But I also just love that we're actually embedded in downtown. We see people. We go to local businesses. We're out and about in the community. And because we share our home with other arts organizations, we're also bumping into all of the employees from those other arts organizations. And I like to think of not-for-profit arts organizations as a kind of ecosystem, and we all help cross-pollinate each other. So it's wonderful to see those people, and we're really happy to be in there together.
Absolutely. And what's your experience so far with the Ark?
It's similar. What I love so much is that you could feel the history and the depth of the building. You know, you go into some spaces and they can almost feel a little bit sterile, but there's so much weight and so much history in the building that when we step out on stage, we feel the echoes of all the things that came before from this community. And that's a really exciting thing to be a part of, and also try to lift up and create and help renovate those things in the building. So there's a charm that brings a lot of magic to the work that not only I think you can feel in seeing the shows, but we definitely feel being on the stage itself, which is thanks to all those in the community who came before us.
Well, this year I'm in the acting company. We work in rotating reps, so we put on two plays simultaneously and they switch nights. We perform different plays on different days. So we're doing Pericles, which is a very seldom produced Shakespeare play. It's a wonderful play. It's almost like a fairy tale meets Game of Thrones. It's sort of like the Odyssey, if anybody's familiar with the classic The Odyssey. It's episodic. It's an adventure tale. There's something for everybody. It's also a real treat to perform a play that is rarely performed. So for real Shakespeare nerds who want to see the whole canon, it's exciting. For those of us who love Shakespeare but have never had a chance to work on this play, it's very exciting. And then they have paired that beautifully with A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a really popular Shakespeare play that many, many, many people know. If you've never seen Shakespeare, it's a great introductory play. Anybody can understand it. It is joyful and silly, and you can appreciate it at different age levels, which is really great. This happens to be a super physical version of the story, so there's a lot of exciting physical work that's being done, a lot of that by Benjamin. And then to take advantage of this beautiful Masonic theater space, in A Midsummer Night's Dream, we are actually using some of the historic and beautifully preserved theatrical drops. They're over 100 years old. They've been in this building for generations. They're almost never seen. And they are utilizing those specifically in this production. So if you want to get a chance to see some gorgeous 19th century, we can't reproduce that kind of work these days, drops, come and see Midsummer Night's Dream. And I'm playing Puck and Peter Quince in Midsummer Night's Dream. I trade off with another actor in the company, Will Sturdivant. So on alternating performances, I'll play bottom and he'll play bottom, and then we'll switch off with Peter Quince. And then in Pericles, it's sort of an ensemble show, so I'm playing about half a dozen different roles in that show.
Yeah, so I'm also an actor in the company, and in the two plays that Tara mentioned, in Midsummer Night's Dream, I play Oberon, who's the king of the fairies, and Lysander, who is a lover in the play, and Snug. And in Pericles, I am playing characters Lysimachus and Cleon, but again, these names might not ring familiar to people since it's not a popular play. So I play the governor of a town, I play the owner of a brothel, and a lot of knights and soldiers. But I was thinking about what Tara was mentioning about the drops. Not only are they over 100 years old, but some people may have seen the drops before. I saw them, and it's kind of like, oh, interesting. But seeing these drops under the lights, you really get to see how they were supposed to be used. And I just had this like awe moment when I saw them, when the lights finally hit them, that I was just, this is so stunning. And so to get a chance to see not just the drops, but the drops under professional lighting is really, really incredible.
Years ago, I worked at a theater that originally was called the Fulton Opera House in Pennsylvania, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Now I believe is called the Fulton Theater. And it is the oldest continually operating theater in the United States. And in their lobbies, they've gone to Christie's and Sotheby's, some auctions, to buy lithographs of playbills as far back as they can find from touring shows that used to come through that theater in the 19th century. The building was built on the foundation of another building. I think it was a jail at one point. And that theater had an amazing ghost tour. Because the world is so small, and the world of theater is especially small, coincidentally, the managing director of that theater was Aaron Young, who is now the managing director of our theater. And he led the ghost tour. And now we're in this Masonic temple. There are ghosts associated with the building. And I think we should talk to him about starting another ghost tour for our festival, because I know he's good at it.
No, I'm scanning my brain, and I think this might be it. I think this might be the oldest space that I've ever performed in, for sure.
Well, I've been coming here first as an audience member. My husband, Christopher Gerson, was in the founding company 23 years ago as an actor, and that was the year we started dating. So as his girlfriend, I came out to see him in a show. And I immediately fell in love with the company's approach to doing Shakespeare. They really put so much work into making sure that they understand what they are saying so that the audience can understand what they are saying. And I sat in the audience and I was so jealous that I was not in the company. But I was also hooked on the beauty of the town and the friendliness of the residents. And so I came back the next year and saw the plays. And I came back the next year and saw the plays. I'm a professional actor, so every now and then I would audition. And it took me a while to get in the company, but I've been coming here since the 4th season with a couple of exceptions. I took a couple of years off to do other things. So that approach to the work, coupled with the people who are here, both in the company and in the town, are what I find really unique about this particular place. And that's what keeps me coming back.
So I'm assuming, were you never originally from Winona? Where did you come from?
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area in California in a city called San Jose. And then school took me all over the place. So I studied in California, then I studied in St. Louis, then I studied at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. But I make my home in New York City in Queens. And I love it. And the great thing about living in New York is there's plenty of film and television that happens in New York, so I can audition for that. There's There's obviously theater in New York City that I can audition for. Now, most of it is musicals, and I don't happen to do musicals, so I do work in New York, but it's more rare for me. The other great thing about New York is the regional theaters, of which Great River is one, all over the country tend to go to New York to audition because it's sort of one-stop shopping for them. They can go to one place and see a huge number of actors. And for actors, it is really useful to be able to have a home base, to live in one place, but I can cast a really wide net. So I can audition for theater all over the country, and because of that, then I'm able to get enough work to make my living.
Similar to Tara, it is our focus so much on the text and really helping people understand what's going on in these plays. I think a lot of times there's kind of a stigma to Shakespeare, right? Like, high class. Oh, that's for someone else. And a lot of that comes from, the way it was kind of showcased to us as kids, or even in high school, right? We all read it in high school and we all hated it. And the reason we hated it is because actors weren't performing it. It would be the equivalent of, in high school, people bringing architecture plans and go, look how beautiful this building is, but never seeing the building itself. And so we're doing these plays where you have a company that does all the work, that takes that blueprint, which is the script, and really finds out what these people are saying. I always say, if you go to a Shakespeare play and you don't understand it, then you went to a bad Shakespeare play. But when you have a company that really knows what these words mean, then you come and you know exactly what's going on. You might not know the definition of a certain word, but you know what they're after. You know what people are trying to gain, who's in love with who's trying to kill who. And I love that focus because the plays are so exciting. And for me, like we said, oh, come see this Shakespeare play. People might go, I don't know. But take Pericles, and I said, come see this play about this prince that's kind of on a run. And there's this assassin that's chasing him. And he meets all these storms, and there's these shipwrecks. And then he washes up on places where he has to fight all these knights. And he's got a daughter who's also being tried to be killed. I mean, like, people then go, well, I want to see that play, But we get turned off by Shakespeare because of what we were fed kind of when we were younger. So I love so much that this festival focuses so much on the text itself to bring that to life, because when they do, these plays are so much fun and so exciting to see.
And are you originally from Winona?
No, I'm from Southeast Louisiana. And no, I don't sound like the rest of my family. But I've been kind of all over. I lived in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, and eventually ending up in New York for the same reasons that Tara mentioned, because that's the big hub. That's where a lot of theater casts out of and works out of. I got into theater late, but then I eventually found that is my calling, so I went to grad school. But after that, I just littered everywhere with my headshot and resume, like hard in a manila envelope, hard mail, 5 stamps, and actually mailed out to every Shakespeare company that I could find. And luckily, the Paul Barnes, who was the artistic director at the time, saw my resume and asked me to audition. But the audition, I was living in New Orleans at the time, and the closest he could get to me was in Austin, where he was auditioning some other people. So I drove a motorcycle to Austin, and I auditioned there in 2012 or 2013. And that's how I got here.
Again, the world is very tiny. So Paul Barnes, who was one of the founding directors of the Shakespeare Festival 13 years earlier, he was the head of a training program in California called PCPA that was attached to a professional company. And right out of high school, I was a student at that training program. So I met him when I was 17 years old, doing my first ever real audition in the basement of San Jose State University. That is where I auditioned. And I had to do a Shakespeare monologue, and I was so embarrassed because I didn't know how to do a Shakespeare monologue. And I remember him saying, do you want to say anything about your audition afterwards? And I said, well, I know you asked me to do a Shakespeare monologue, and I did one, and I know that there are things to know about Shakespeare, but I don't know what any of those things are. And he was so sweet to me, and he said, well, you're right. There are a lot of things to know about Shakespeare, and anybody can learn them, and you're naturally doing a bunch of them anyway. And it kind of took it from being like this scary, fancy thing that I didn't know anything about. And he was like, yeah, we can all learn these things about Shakespeare. They're not rarefied. They're for everybody. So that was a lovely intro to it. But I came out to see my boyfriend, and I knew many of the people who ran this festival. Now, when Shakespeare was writing plays, there were no female actors allowed on the stage. Only men were allowed on the stage, and they even played the women's parts. So young men, prepubescent boys would play the women's parts, and men would play all the other parts. But also because he tended to be writing about a time in which men were in charge of pretty much everything, most of the stories tended to be, not all of them, but many of them were heavily populated with men. Maybe 2, maybe 3, if you're real lucky, 4 women might be in a play. And when I was first auditioning, Shakespeare festivals were doing what was called very traditional casting. So only men played men, only women played women, which meant that there were all of these female actors just trying to get into these Shakespeare festivals, but there's maybe only 1 or 2 parts. Whereas if you're a guy right out of school, there's 18 parts, and you can be a spear carrier, and then you can be a messenger, and then you can be, a young lord. And there's all these ways to kind of graduate. People loved working here, and they weren't going to give up their slot, right? And then the 3rd year, somebody dropped out at the last minute, and I auditioned, because I knew people, but the other director here wanted a different actor, so I didn't get the job that year. And then the next year, another person dropped out at the last minute, and then I got in. Wow. But in a way, it's really great because, first of all, I appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. And really, that's just the way auditioning goes. I would say out of every 10 auditions I do, I maybe book 1 part. So you just sort of understand you're going to throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall. Most of it's not going to stick, and every now and then one's going to stick. But it was a little bit of knowing the people in charge and then waiting around for the right timing. I will say that now we are really committed to gender parity. So it's not exclusively or primarily men who are in our company. It's a much more diverse company overall. It's a nice shift. And that's happened nationwide as well, I would say.
My first show was when we did Twelfth Night and Henry V. In Henry V, I played the Constable of France. And but the thing I remember most about that season was in Twelfth Night, because Tara was playing Viola, and I played a sea captain who basically helps rescue her from the sea in the beginning of the play, and then a whole bunch of other smaller characters. But those were the 2 roles that I played, and I just fell in love with the people here and the festival that season.
Lovely. Was that the original part you wanted, or?
And I mean, I love, as much as I loved the sea captain, Tara, there were probably other roles I could have, would have enjoyed playing. But that happens a lot of times, when you're just like any other business or company or any other profession, you're coming in at the ground level. So a lot of times, especially as young as I was, coming to a festival, I'm going to be playing the smaller parts, because we're also learning how you fit in the ensemble. An audition tells you a lot, but sometimes people are really good at auditioning, but maybe not the best as far as an ensemble member goes. And so that whole year was all about me, showing what I could do with small roles, and the kind of ensemble member I wanted to be. And from there, I started getting more roles that were, we'll just say, more desirable.
Do you remember your first performance for Shakespeare Festival?
Yes. So that season, they did As You Like It and Macbeth, which we can say because we're not in a theater.
Right, because I was like, Macbeth.
Yeah, they're allowed to say it. We're in an apartment, so we're all right. And I played a role called Celia in As You Like It, and she's the cousin and best friend of the lead character, Rosalind. And I just love that part. This part is similar to Horatio in Hamlet, where you're the best friend of the lead, but they really need you. So Celia has courage and loyalty that Rosalind, the lead, really, really needs. And I love the way Shakespeare gives sort of equal love and respect to all of his characters, no matter the size of the character. So it's really fulfilling to play those characters. And I met some of my best friends in my life doing that season. And then in Macbeth, I got to be one of the witches, which was so fun. And then as the witches, we also sort of inhabited some of the small characters in the play. So we would sort of turn up, and I remember I was a waiting gentlewoman who sees Lady Macbeth sleepwalking when her guilty conscience has affected her sleep. And so we would sort of pop up in these small characters, and we were always on stage somewhere sort of drumming a sort of soundscape, this sort of heartbeat soundscape for the whole play. And I had the best time. Oh, we were covered with blue Celtic tattoos. We had bodysuits with blue Celtic tattoos, and then we painted them all over our face. It was pretty rad.
That does sound rad. I was going to ask you about the costumes next. Like, do you love putting on? I'm assuming yes, you do, right?
Yes.
But do you have a favorite one that you can
Favorite costume? That is such a great and very difficult question. Benjamin, if you have something in mind, please go for it.
Well, I love to move, so anything that I can move well in, I'm all for it. But one that gave me such freedom of movement and made me feel the most magical I've ever felt on stage was actually when we did As You Like It. I played Orlando, and it felt almost like maybe more of an Eastern version of Robin Hood. It was this beautiful ruby and turquoise vest that had this fur. It was so great. And when people are building, because our costumers and our drapers, they're building a lot of the costumes. It's not like they just found it online. They're building these things to our bodies, and they are some really talented artists. And I remember, I still have photos from that where I was all, man, if I was in another time, this is exactly what I would wear. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, this is such a hard question. I'm going to leave out a million things that I'm going to forget. But one of the first costumes that I wore here was in Merchant of Venice. I played Portia, and it was the first role I ever played that was sort of like a pretty princess role. I'm not really the person that people think of that way, and even when I was younger, I didn't necessarily play those roles, so it was a complete change of role for me. And it took place in the Italian Renaissance, and that was where we costumed it as well. And I had the most gorgeous Italian Renaissance blue gown, and then this cape made out of silk taffeta. It was the most extraordinary piece of costuming I've ever worn. I've worn costumes that were so fun and funny and helped me find my character every year. But that was like a museum piece, and I could not believe I got to wear it. And then costumes inform how you move. Sometimes it's really easy to move in them, but sometimes it's not easy to move in them, and that is important because that tells you about your character too. So the fact that I needed to stand still a lot, or that I needed to only move forward, I could not back up because I had a train that was 10 feet long behind me. So when you're a person of that much authority, you only move forward through the world. You do not back up for anybody. So those limitations of the costume can sometimes be a beautiful gift to the actor and tell you a lot about your character. That was designed by Margaret Whedon. I just want to give her credit.
They were just so stunning. I want to say that Margaret Whedon also designed that one as well. That would have been in 2016.
Wow. 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
That's amazing.
We won't count the zero in between.
That concludes part 1 of the Great River Shakespeare Festival with actors Tara Flanagan and Benjamin Boucvalt on Artbeat. Tune in next week for part 2. A big hearty thanks to Tara Flanagan and Benjamin Boucvalt for joining us tonight on Artbeat. To learn more about the Great River Shakespeare Festival, check out their website at GRSF.org. For more conversations on art, tune into Artbeat Tuesdays at 12:30, right here on 89.5 KQAL. For podcasts of Artbeat and other KQAL original programming, go to kqal.org. I'm Kristine Osorio, and we've just heard from talented actors Tara Flanagan and Benjamin Boucvalt from the Great River Shakespeare Festival, here on Artbeat.
Artbeat is written and produced by KQAL FM on the campus of Winona State University. Visit us on the web at kqal.org.